Hey everyone, and welcome back to another explainer right here on the Foundry by Forge College. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. So go ahead and grab your virtual trench coats and your digital magnifying glasses, because today we're playing the role of Web3 detectives. Our mission? We're solving the great mystery of broken identity verifications in decentralized systems. You know, setting up an identity on the blockchain is one thing, but making sure external applications can actually verify that identity without the whole system breaking down, well, that's where the real detective work begins. So settle in, get comfortable, and let's unravel this mystery together.
To understand exactly where we're going, we kind of need to remember where we just came from. In our previous lesson, Evaluating Performance and Metrics, we basically Fort Knoxed our smart contracts. We locked the doors, we set the cryptographic alarms, configured secure resolvers, and dialed in those access controls. The system was literally flawless. But now we've stumbled into a brand new, incredibly frustrating mystery. Perfectly valid users, people who absolutely have the right to be authenticated, are just getting completely rejected. So why do perfectly secure systems still fail? We basically built a vault so secure that even the rightful owners can't get inside. It's maddening for sure, but the good news? It's completely solvable.
Okay, let's dive into this. Our primary suspect here is the false negative. A false negative happens when a perfectly valid identity mapping is inexplicably rejected by an external verifier. Imagine you've got this correctly locked down ENS name, your Ethereum named service name. The permissions are tight, the security is pristine, but when a decentralized app actually tries to read it to verify who you are, boom, it throws an error. The verifier might not see the expected proof, or maybe a client checks the wrong resolver entirely. It creates a massive headache for user experience. Because think about it, security is totally useless if it completely breaks accessibility, right? And diagnosing that invisible friction is exactly what we're going to fix today.
All right, moving into Phase 1, the Detective's Toolkit. Let's gather our gear.
You simply can't solve a complex blockchain crime without the right gear. And just as a quick side note, mastering these specific diagnostic tools rather than just guessing what went wrong is actually a core focus across Forge College's developer courses. When you know how to use your tools, a seemingly impossible bug just becomes a routine checklist. So here's your forensic kit. First up, you need a local json-rpc node. Think of tools like Hardhat or Ganache as your isolated, highly controlled crime lab. Next is your Node.js environment. This is basically your workbench where all the analysis happens. And finally, your Ethers.js diagnostic scripts. If the local node is your lab, Ethers.js scripts are your digital magnifying glass and fingerprint dusting powder. These scripts are incredibly compact, usually just a few lines of code, but they let us repeatedly query a name, fetch the resolver, and read text records to see exactly what the blockchain sees.
Now this highlights the absolute, undisputed golden rule of Web3 debugging. Recreate the scene of the crime safely, meaning never ever debug on mainnet. I know it sounds obvious, but you'd be shocked at how often people test their fixes in production. By using a controlled local node or a testnet, we can intentionally misconfigure records, break identity verifications, and just observe the fallout, all without causing a multi-million-dollar disaster for live users. It gives us the freedom to be totally reckless in a perfectly safe sandbox.
On to Phase 2, Suspects and Symptoms. Let's identify our culprits.
All right, our crime lab is completely set up. Our nodes are running, our scripts are locked and loaded. Now it's time to bring the culprits in for questioning. Think of this as our forensic ledger. It perfectly maps the specific technical symptoms we see in our scripts directly to the underlying bugs. So if your script shows that no resolver is returned, the likely cause is that the ENS name simply has no resolver set at all, and your quick evidence is a null resolver address. On the flip side, if you see a TXT value mismatch, the cause is usually an incorrect payload format, and your evidence is the exact string you pulled. We do not guess in Web3 debugging. We map the observed symptom right to a testable cause. Let's look a little closer at Suspect A, the missing resolver. The symptom here is that your script spits back resolver address is null. Think of the Ethereum name service like a massive decentralized neighborhood. Someone owns a piece of land, that's the ENS name, but they haven't actually built a house on it yet. The house in this scenario is the resolver, the smart contract that actually holds your data. So if an external app tries to verify your identity by sending mail to that plot of land, the mail carrier just finds an empty field. It fails because there's literally no resolver contract there to answer the query.
And this brilliantly illustrates our second major culprit, Suspect B, the TXT record mismatch. The verifier expects to see a beautifully formatted decentralized identifier payload, something like did.ens proof ABC123, but instead your script actually pulls did.ens proof wrong. The verifier receives absolute gibberish. In this case, the resolver is there, the house is built, but when the verifier knocks on the door and asks for the password, it gets the wrong answer. This is incredibly common when payloads get updated manually or a cache goes stale.
Which brings us to phase 3, building your case file. Time to document that evidence.
So we've got our suspects, and we know their footprints. But knowing who did it isn't enough. You have to prove it. A digital detective is only as good as the evidence they meticulously collect and catalog. Enter the debug report. Now, this is not just a messy notepad file where you dump some console logs and hope for the best. A true debug report is the ultimate airtight proof of your investigation. It contains reproducible steps so anyone can recreate the bug. It contains raw query outputs, exact resolver addresses, transaction hashes, and timestamps. And for those of you heading into your capstone project, listen up. This artifact isn't optional. It is the foundational proof that you know exactly why your identity mappings are behaving the way they do.
I absolutely love this quote. Feelings don't solve bugs. Time-stamped JSON outputs and transaction hashes do. It's kind of lighthearted, but it is deeply, painfully true. You can't just look at a failed verification and guess, oh, I feel like maybe it's a caching issue. Guessing won't fix ENS mapping issues. You need concrete, hard data extracted directly from your Ethers.js scripts to build a real, verifiable root cause hypothesis.
And finally, phase 4, remediation and testing, closing the case.
All right, we've gathered the raw evidence, we've built an airtight case in our debug report. Now it's time to close it by safely fixing the issue and making sure it stays fixed. There is a strict 4-step lifecycle to methodically fixing a bug without introducing brand new chaos into your system. Step 1, you must reproduce the exact symptom in your safe environment. Step 2, you collect that raw JSON evidence we just talked about. Step 3 is where you apply targeted remediation. And notice I said targeted, meaning you fix only what is broken, applying the smallest set of changes possible. And finally, step 4, which is so absolutely crucial we need to spend a little more time on it, running regression tests. Let's detail this regression testing step. When you apply a surgical fix, you've got to double-check your work to ensure you didn't accidentally break other working identity resolutions. You run your inspect script on the targeted name and confirm that the expected text record finally appears. But you don't stop there. You test related ENS names in your environment to verify absolutely no unintended changes occurred. It's like fixing a leaky pipe in your kitchen and then checking the bathroom just to make sure you didn't accidentally cut off the water supply to the whole house. So, the crucial point is this final piece of advice. Always make remediation reversible in your test environment. When you're testing a fix, make sure you know exactly how to undo it. By keeping your remediation reversible, you drastically reduce your risk. If a regression test fails, you simply roll it back. Check your debug report and formulate a new hypothesis. This principle alone will literally shorten your debugging cycles from days of frustrating guesswork to just a few minutes of clinical, targeted testing.
Which brings us to the end of our investigation. Ask yourself, if we build unbreakable vaults on the blockchain but forget to leave a map for the rightful owners, does decentralized trust even work? It's up to you to build verification paths that are reliable enough for your capstone project and, honestly, for the real world. Thank you so much for joining me on this detective adventure today. If you found this explainer helpful, please visit forge.college to dive deeper into this subject and explore a wealth of other incredible Web3 learning resources. Until next time, keep your nodes synced and your evidence timestamped.